Except for the sunglasses on. Cool. Great hat.
Good afternoon.
It's feeling very Cubanish today.
My name is Kimberly King-Burns with Convergent Solutions, and welcome to this afternoon's discussion, which is all about developing strategies and partnerships, Hollywood content as brand and franchise. And we've amassed a group today that I think you'll be impressed with because they represent the Hollywood diaspora. They come from all parts of media. They come from a variety of formats. They've bridged the gap from nonlinear to linear, from linear to nonlinear and back. And what we're going to talk to today is how the past Hollywood model has served us well and what digital media is doing in and of itself to upend that and serve as somewhat revolutionary medium. We've got a good group today. We've got Troy Beyer, the director and writer and executive producer of I Really Hate My Ex, BAPS, B-A-P-S, very popular. Mike Rotman, new media producer who's written for South Park and Politically Incorrect with Bill Maher, and he's currently doing Streaming Garage. Courtney Vance will not be able to be with us today, unfortunately, since he did have a family issue. And thankfully, Brandon Schultz, who's the president of Street Legends, Inc., and past producer and co-founder of Imagination Studios, has agreed to join us in his stead. Gary Benz, of course, needs very little introduction, heading up GRB Entertainment, which has brought us Princess of Malibu, Alter Eco with Adrian Grenier, and A&E's Intervention.
Yes.
We do have Charles Como from Underground Network, and his career spans a pretty significant chunk of digital media history. We both met back in the early 90s when he launched Box Top Interactive, which later merged with IXL and was one of the first big success stories of the very first .com era, version 1.0. So today what we're going to talk about, what I'd like to do to get started is to introduce you to this lovely panel, give you an idea as to what we've all been doing, what we're all about. Convergent Solutions has been in place since 1995 as a digital media brokerage, initially working with music labels and film studios and educational providers to help them integrate digital media into their operating and their marketing capabilities. We've since branched out to lots of different kinds of content development, both domestic and international. I work with a lot of different Caribbean storytellers. I hail from the Bahamas myself. And what I've loved about digital media is the ability to now start telling very niche stories, having lowered the price points so that Hollywood tales no longer need to appeal to the lowest common denominator to get a decent distribution deal. I'd like to introduce Ms. Beyer.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here. What would you like me to speak to? Or would you like me to introduce myself?
I think, yeah, just give us a backgrounder, what
Okay.
you've been doing and what you're thinking about today.
Okay, great. So I began my career in show business at the ripe age of 4 on Sesame Street. I was one of the original cast members, and I remember thinking when I was a little girl that I didn't want to be in front of the camera. I wanted to be behind the camera because they had these cameras that were like electrically operated and kind of zoom across the floor. And I thought, wow, I want to make that kind of magic, happen. So I've always wanted to get behind the camera, but my problem was, and this is why I think kind of speaks into what we're talking about today, is I did not have the skills or the training to direct or be behind the camera. I've been an actress most of my life, so it was like, how was I going to break the barrier and do that? So I started writing. My first film I wrote was called BAPS. I wrote it for myself as an actress that I also wanted to direct, but they gave it to Halle Berry, which is fantastic because she got us the green light that we needed. And then after that, Mark Ordesky, who was just here, gave me my break as a director on a movie called Let's Talk About Sex.
Nice. And what are you focused on today?
I have a film out right now called I Really Hate My Ex that is being distributed on digital and DVD by Lionsgate. That's what I'm focusing on. Yeah.
Nice, thank you. Mr. Rotman.
Hi, Mike Rotman. Done a lot of TV in the past. Named a bunch of the shows that I worked on. Always dabbled in digital, even like 93, 94. I was working on a show later with Greg Kinnear at NBC, and we would do live chats in the AOL chat rooms. And then I did one of the first web parodies of the Blair Witch Project way back in the day. So that was when it was postage size online, way before YouTube. So sort of did a lot of that, did reality TV, didn't like that, left TV because of that. Started my own company called Streaming Garage about 6-7 years ago. We started off as a live company. I literally built my garage into a 5-camera live studio 5 years ago. We were one of the first ones to kind of broadcast HD live, thus the name Streaming Garage. And now we're working a lot with, we work a lot with influencers, digital influencers. We've worked with Will Smith to do his After Earth companion piece to YouTube. We worked with Michelle Phan to live stream some of her stuff. And then, we sold a show to Nerdist called Kids Court. So we're kind of dabbling in the digital world, as well as doing a lot of different podcasts on top of that, plus live streaming as well. And, if we monetize our own shows, great. Otherwise, we try to sell them to other networks now, or we work with brands to develop content, again, for their influencers.
Thank you. Introducing Charles Como, Underground Network.
Yeah, my name's Charles Como. Yeah, I guess I started in the digital world, and I guess I'm the one who probably primarily started in digital in '94, and out of my bedroom in Hollywood, and my first client was Capitol Records. It was the first website ever for any major entertainment company. And then it was Warner Brothers, then it was all of Fox, UPN, Gas, Mattel, Sega Soft, Hot Wheels, Barbie, blah, 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 all those companies. So I worked with, so I really got a chance to work with all the major entertainment companies in the early part of, mid 90s to late 90s, helping them figure out their whole online strategy. And, that company that I created kind of merged with this other one, went public with a valuation of like $3.6 billion. And then it went to like zero, I think in 1999, when it all crashed. And then a few years ago, I started in the YouTube space. I felt that YouTube was going to be the predominant video platform. And this was in 2006. And so I set out to see if I could kind of figure out what that platform was going to be all about, and created a channel that went on to become one of the most watch channels of all time. I guess we've got about 500 million views, 500 million views. We were generating $1 million a year in ad revenue. And it was a show about the origins of words, etymology. So, not the typical topic you might pick if you want to sort of dominate YouTube. So now we're just, I'm taking that experience of creating short form entertainment, making it interesting on a subject that may not necessarily be interesting. And we're now going to apply it to politics. And we're going to try to see if we can turn Washington into one big reality show and make these guys accountable to us. So that's what we're working on right now.
Reality show more so than already is the case.
Yeah, exactly.
Hello there, Mr. Benz.
Hi, Gary Benz. I started GRB Entertainment in 1986 and started by producing a lot of stunt shows for ABC and Fox Network. And at that time, too, I started the distribution side of GRB. So we took our shows back in the day. The networks weren't allowed to own the shows. That has since changed. But so I decided to distribute those shows myself. And I was lucky enough that I had these great action shows with all the action stars in them and great stunts. So they sold very well internationally. And then we just grew the company from there and started doing a lot of programming for Discovery and A&E, as well as the commercial networks. And so we currently do maybe 60 to 100 hours of programming for the traditional networks. And we distribute those shows internationally when we're able to hang on to them. And we also acquire shows from other producers and even other networks, and we distribute those shows for them as well. And today we are also doing programming, we did our first film with YouTube stars and traditional stars in it, and it's going to come out in July. It's called Bad Night. And we're really excited about it. And I'm really excited about the business changing so much so that it's not just traditional networks that order half hours and hour programs or movies, and short form and all kinds of programs have opportunities to find an audience, and you can tell stories in a myriad of formats.
Absolutely. Which leads to Mr. Schultz's work with Blockheads in particular.
Thanks. My name is Brandon Schultz, and I am the president of Street Legends, Inc. And Street Legends, Inc. is a graphic novel and toy company. Our flagship project, Blockheads, most recently was entered into the hip hop archive at Harvard University. So we're really proud of that. That just happened a couple of weeks ago. And we started Blockheads out of our small boutique animation studio, which was about myself and 4 or 5 artists. And we did TV show opens, we did music videos for artists like Tony Braxton, R. Kelly. We did the first postage-size stamp, emailable, animated campaign for Adidas, where we featured music from Run DMC and music with basketball players. So our space has been around global youth culture. Our focus has been on hip hop and fantasy and animation. And so that's where we're going with our future content in terms of developing fantasy for the hip hop space, fantasy projects that, you know, are for nerds like us.
And as I recall, Blockheads in its graphic novel format was one of the first to transcend just domestic borders and became hugely popular in the anime market overseas, correct?
Yeah, we were distributed internationally in Germany as well as Japan. We did a line of toys that were all what they call urban vinyl or art toys. And so we did brand partnerships with Adidas and with Carhartt Asia and Carhartt Europe to do special limited edition toys. And so that's been, you know, our history is like working our own, you know, Batman, our own Spider-Man, at the same time doing work for hire with other companies who want the aesthetic that we bring.
A very good balancing act. I mean, we've really had 25 years now to play with opportunities that talk to the evolution of this particular medium. And I'd like to talk to the most common trends that we've seen. You tend to see and hear the same predictions year after year after year, the next best thing since sliced bread. But we're really beginning to see, especially in the United States, now that broadband internet access has kind of caught up to the rest of the world's levels, we're really seeing an absolute opportunity for different revenue models that help keep independent producers independent. And I'd like to ask the panel to talk to what sorts of unique monetization applications or technology platforms are you integrating into your content development, whether at the point of production or after the fact, to help your studio stay independent and stay sturdy?
I'll jump in. One thing, and I don't know, that we've been exploring more and more recently is partnerships with ad agencies before the actual property is complete. So there's an ad agency that we're in talks with now that wants a certain like old school hip hop aesthetic, and they're saying, well, what properties do you have that can work to that? So I mean, I think once you have a body of work, those are things that now the people who are running the ad agencies, before it was a thing where we had to get them, okay, to understand what we're doing and why kids like, you know, this aesthetic or what we're doing or why our characters might look different than what you'd see on Disney. But now it's though the people making the decisions at the ad agencies seem to be our peers, you know, who get it off top. So.
That's good for brand new content. Can we also talk to, say, repurposing public domain older content for the newer generation?
Well, one of our shows we did was called Super Scary Horror Theater. We took B movies that are the public domain and we literally put a new twist on Elvira on it. We streamed that live on YouTube. So we sort of were trying to make it a mystery science theater. We had our, you know, we showed the movie. We came in every 15 minutes with comedy bits, essentially, sketches, and then we played games with the audience at home as well. So we had like creepy death or natural death. Did this celebrity die a creepy death or a natural death? People called in and they won prizes from us. So that's how we sort of did it that way. You know, it wasn't repurposing necessarily. It was repurposing a little bit of content and then our new added content to it.
It just seems to me that you could just say add a new soundtrack with more modern musicians and perhaps drive revenue that way. Hint, hint, broad hint.
Start messing up the direction of the director of the original movie.
The essence of nonlinear. Yeah.
But you know, you're asking about monetization. I mean, when I did the with the YouTube channel, I look back at the numbers, and it was, you know, that year we did $1 million. It was probably 250,000. Well, first of all, it was $1 million on our end. So you split that with what YouTube was getting, it's like a 50-50 split. But I looked at the numbers, and 3/4 of our revenues were coming from product placement deals. So basically, you know, so you get your straight advertising, and that was turning it was, you were probably netting, I was probably taking home about $3,000 per million views. What was nice about YouTube is you create these videos and they automatically, and they're there, they become your library. And I really started to understand the value of having a library, like these musicians that have libraries, these studios. I mean, literally I made about 650 videos, but I would make about $35,000 a month without even, you know, getting out of bed. And, you know, so then the new stuff we would make would just sort of be added to the mix. But we actually had a lot of brands contacting us directly, people like Pepsi and so on, and they would offer us up to like $25,000 a video. And these are videos that I was making anyway. And then you start to incorporate their brand into your product, but you do it in a way. See, what's interesting about the YouTube community is you have, your audience has sort of like direct access to you. So the brands come to you because you have an audience, but you're also very cognizant of the fact that you don't want to piss off your audience. So, and they will give you immediate feedback if you know, give them a crappy advertisement or whatever. So it leaves it up to the creators to kind of come up with interesting ways to incorporate the product in your videos. So that was so I really, you know, and I'm sure today now you could probably deal with agencies directly or partner up with them and work with them, and they'll be more attuned to working with you on those kinds of things too. So.
And Gary, from your perspective, you've got an enormous block of 3,000 hours in your library, which is impressive. So as you drive into new markets, what new toys or algorithms are you integrating into your content?
It's a good question. I'm not sure I know the answer to it, but because we are constantly working our library into, you know, every country we can, and been windowing it for years. And so usually the rights are encumbered or blocked for a while. And while I really like the market that is now opened up, which I look at it as a B2C, you know, the business to consumer market, and you know, getting rid of some of the middlemen in there, we're approaching that from new content more than the old content. We still will take our old content and look for ways to monetize it, but we haven't been as lucky when you're doing programming just for like your own YouTube channel or whatever, and it could just sit up there and bring money, which is terrific. We expect some of that to happen for us later, but we're aggressively pursuing, you know, programming that we can put up on, you know, for transactional or subscription-based services and get the revenue that way.
Okay. Troy, how about you? You've got some great content that you're playing with as well. How do you plan to leverage what you've already produced and introduce that to, say, new markets that have new mindsets?
I think what I'm looking to do more than anything is just to expand the content that I am providing on my channel right now. As a filmmaker, I'm constantly getting, and being registered on IMDb, I'm constantly being contacted by people who have content that they really want to get exposure to, and they're not able to break through the barriers, you know, the studio gates. So mainly that's what my team and I are doing. We're looking for content that we can put up, and right now we're really looking at animation. That's the avenue that I'm moving towards, is taking really interesting stories, and I have an amazing animator, so we're just doing that.
And so then you would introduce some of these new colleagues to different distribution networks that you have access to?
Actually, I wasn't looking at it, but thank you. That's a great idea. I appreciate that. I was actually really just focusing on finding content to expand and grow my brand and our channel.
Sure.
and using that as a platform for them. Sort of like, I don't know if you've been watching what Russell Simmons has been doing.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Sure.
definitely digital. Yeah.
So and that's a perfect segue. We're seeing a lot of really good network shows, traditional medium. This year, deploy social media in a way that hasn't been done to date. If an episode of Scandal is on, social media across the Caribbean is on fire, and that's 2/3 of the conversation, whether it's WeChat or Facebook or WhatsApp. And I think it took a lot of the traditional studios by surprise because they're not monetizing, or they weren't even thinking about those secondary and third, tertiary markets. How is realizing that Hollywood as a content focal point, not being just limited to the 48 contiguous states anymore, reworking your production and business development models?
Well, I can speak to that. My film, I Really Hate My Ex, it's 50% narrative and it's 50% digital. I actually did some filming via Skype, okay? And I obviously couldn't go to Dubai and cast my film, but I was able to put it out on Craigslist. And I have people in my film from all over the world now, and I was able to really utilize that as access to talent that I would never get and incorporate that in the film. So my film is a very global film. And I think the studio, when they saw my film, they were like, wow, how did you make this international, this film for $1 million? And point blank, Craigslist. That's it, Craigslist,
Taking notes, I
and
hope.
Skype. Yeah. And just, the only challenge is transferring it to film in terms of the quality, when you were recording it. But then that actually speaks to the authenticity of the film.
That's interesting. I mean, that would have huge implications for citizens journalism in general.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking of which, like with our show, the sort of political show, I guess a big aspect of, I mean, you mentioned social media, the big aspect of our show is actually having people record themselves with an app that we're going to have, and we're going to actually incorporate them within the show. So you're starting to open up a whole, in the past, social media seems like it's always been sort of tacked on to a show. They're trying to think of some way to make the show interactive, and it's usually just some, sort of gimmick, but now you can actually create shows sort of around the actual interaction with users. But and then you mentioned sort of international. Well, the interesting about international is that your audience, with YouTube, half of our audience was coming from overseas. So if you're creating a show like our show, we're working with a TV production company, and we're going to start online because I think a lot of things, the way things work these days, like if you want to sign with a record label, you have to have a huge social media following. And I think a lot of the, new shows that are coming out, they want to see if it can do well online, and then you can move it to broadcast. And plus online's a bigger audience anyway. But you also have to start thinking in terms of international, like right off the bat. I mean, I'm already thinking, okay, well, when we launch this thing, we should probably just be ready to go, like with the same show in different languages in different countries, just like, and we're actually kind of lining up that right now because you have to be sort of prepared for that, so.
And with ours, we noticed we had a lot of live call-in stuff. We noticed a lot of international callers. We had a show called Stupid for Movies, and we'd get people from Egypt and Israel and calling in and talking about movies. So I always wanted to do a worldwide game show. I thought there's some way to do this. And we figured it out when a Bitcoin company came in and sponsored. We did 22 episodes of the show called Take My Bitcoins. That was essentially sort of Price is Right meets Gong Show. We did it weekly last year. We gave away $40,000 in Bitcoin to 28 different countries. And it just let us, we thought immediately international, and it was literally somebody from Egypt would call in, and it was 6 a.m. there, but they wanted to win Bitcoin because it was always, how do you get people to watch live? Let's give away money. How do we give away money internationally? And that was the final bit of the puzzle came together with Bitcoin. So we had a lot of fun with that.
Now, will you be bringing the Bitcoin show back? Because I remember when this first came up, we recently had the vote in the United Kingdom as to whether Scotland was going to secede. And one of the big sticks that the UK was able to carry over, Scotland's head was, if you secede, you're going to have to figure out your own currency because we're not going to let you use pound sterling.
Good.
At which point, a lot of us said, hey, can we go in and in 15 minutes, communicate the essence of having a virtual currency, whether
Wow.
Bitcoin or otherwise.
Right.
So what you're doing is actually more than just a game show.
Yeah, yeah, and it was
you're really
interesting.
talking truth to power.
Yeah, it was
Taking over the world, basically.
total power. We
Yeah.
paid them off the next day. They got their money. You know, it was like, and it again, it's just a worldwide currency. We had a sponsor for 22 episodes. Where what happened was Bitcoin then was worth $600, and now it's worth 200. So all the companies are like, we're in when it goes back up, because the companies paid us in Bitcoin. I got paid in Bitcoin. Our entire crew, we had 8 people, got paid in Bitcoin. And all the winners got paid again $40,000 worth of Bitcoin. So once it hopefully comes back, we have some sponsors ready to go again.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Anybody else on that detail?
Well, you mentioned live. I guess you're doing a lot of live.
We were doing a lot of live, and now the live's really hard to monetize. Even now, Twitch has come along, to kind of help it out, but it's still really hard to monetize. So again, it's one of our divisions is our own fun, things, and then we also do non-live that pays us. And sometimes we live broadcast things like this that pays pretty well. It's just, again, finding what pays. It's sort of, it's the new frontier still. I mean, this is very different than when I was here 5 years ago, because now I'm seeing like a bunch of money guys suddenly on the boards of some of these MCNs when it was, kids in their basements with a single camera. But in the end, everybody's still trying to figure it out. So that's why we literally have different divisions. We have a podcast division and we have some sponsors for that. We have our own individuals. We have working with influencers, that pays bills as well. It's kind of finding what pays the bills.
Live is interesting because we do a live show as well, and we actually broadcast it on YouTube, and no one from Germany can watch our live broadcast.
Right, Germany cannot. We had a lot of people on Twitter going, "I'm in Germany, I want to watch your show,"
and they can't. You can't watch it because the MPA, the music industry. Which one's that?
Yeah,
they basically they said that there might be some music playing in the background. Therefore, we want you to block all live broadcasts, like 100% from appearing in Germany.
Yeah, we had a lot of fans from Germany complaining about it. I wasn't sure why, but for some reason,
that's what it is.
YouTube blocks Germany.
It's ridiculous. I mean, and like we're doing a political show and stuff like that, and there's all these sort of conspiracy theories that come up, but it's really got nothing to do with it. But live also is sort of an interesting thing because in the past you would think of live was always sort of like. Just not well produced, and it's kind of
drives me crazy.
Yeah,
we're 5 camera HD for 5 years, and it drives me crazy when somebody comes in, asks us to do live, and they're just blown away by it. Or we talk to people who do live, and they're doing it on like a single camera, and they're like, "It's fine."
Yeah,
and I'm like, "No,
I know." So yeah, it's always seems sort of like it's never really sort of had the appeal that that sort of something that's produced. But I think that the audience is being trained now with the success of things like YouTube and online stuff, because now it starts to feel more real for viewers. The more sort of not the less slick it is. You know what I'm saying? Like we shoot 1080, like we'll shoot 1080p, but we won't like go crazy like Entertainment Tonight or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing with live is now what I've been begging for years, and stupidly I'm making content when I should have been making an app. Is what Periscope is now doing, where it immediately tells your phone. And I've been asking everybody, like, we just need that, and that'll help our views for 5 years, instead of going, oh, I should just make that.
Yeah.
Talk to an app maker, but Periscope did it, and they just got bought out for a ton of money. So now, I guess that's helping live. And now new tech, we use something called a TriCaster, which is a switcher. They now have gotten together with Skype. And now it looks much better, and now news. I think you're going to see a lot of user-generated news coming in because of these apps, because of Skype with new tech's new device called Talk Show. I think it's going to be live is suddenly coming alive in the next like year, few weeks, and which we kind of bowed out for a month or probably a year or two, and now we're like, oh, we're back.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, the whole thing is like, he talks about Periscope. Periscope hadn't even launched it. It was an app for the phone, for the iPhone, and it hadn't even launched yet. And Twitter came in and bought them out for $100 million in January.
Well, Meerkat
comes out. And it was the coolest thing on the planet.
1 week.
Within 1 week, you're literally watching like every tech person you've ever read about, who's like the biggest tech person. They're in their house showing you their jacuzzi and stuff like that. And it was, and what was great about it is you would power it up and you would see little faces of everybody that's watching you. So it was really, really cool. And then I made a prediction that, Snapchat better freaking look over their back, their shoulder, because what made Snapchat interesting was that it just felt really raw, and kids sort of like, that is you can just record something that's there and then it kind of disappears. Well, Meerkat was that sort of like on steroids, because it's live and it just goes out, and then if you miss it, you miss it. And of course, you know, I think Snapchat now announced they're doing live.
And Twitter bought Periscope a week after Meerkat. Meerkat was the greatest thing for 2 weeks, and now it's dead. Seriously, it was 2 weeks after South by a month ago, and now it's gone.
Yeah. It's still around. There's little.
Seems like everybody's using Periscope.
But Periscope's
Everybody
not as much fun. You
No,
don't
it's
see
not.
faces. You don't see face. Periscope's not as much fun to use because it feels very one directional.
But
Like when you're on there, you're just broadcasting yourself. At least with Periscope, you can kind of see.
But
other
Twitter
people
cut
watching
them
you.
off, right? That's why
Yeah.
you're not getting the
Well-
pop-up. So it's VHS versus beta. Beta may have been better, but I think.
And
you
the
know,
fact is, Meerkat was piggybacking on the Twitter format, and once a brighter, better gift showed up, they were out. So
Yep.
yeah, that
I
was
still like Meerkat.
10-day brilliant monetization for about 15 minutes. Let's go back to Hollywood as, you know, currently more of a mindset than an actual geographical, you know, location, as we've seen from the conversations today. And, you know, traditionally, or traditional media says that, you know, Hollywood needs to, quote, take more risks. We're seeing a lot of the same tentpole films come out. You know, we're up to Marvel Comics, you know, sequel 12. And the fact is, that's what the public is voting with their wallet to secure. So now that we've got so many different opportunities, you know, whether it's Facebook or Periscope or WeChat. I mean, WeChat is 3 times the size of Facebook. Weibo and you know, Baidu are doing phenomenal things overseas, whether it's Southeast Asia or otherwise. There are so many more formats. So what do we do to appeal to our target watcher, our target viewer? How do we keep them enticed? How do we create compelling content that keeps them coming back? I mean, growing up in the Bahamas, we were the early adopters. We were the ones buying 22-foot diameter satellite dishes in the early 1970s for 20 grand, whether or not our houses had indoor plumbing. Yeah, stateside, it's always been about, you know, virtual casinos and downloading the latest cartoon. Europe, when I worked with Polygram Records, our mother company Philips had driven CD Interactive to a pretty sizable asset throughout Europe as part of a home library. So different countries, different cultures have different needs. So how does Hollywood step up to the plate and take advantage of the variety of media, the variety of formats, so we can drive to our base viewer and make a living doing it?
Well, it's funny you mentioned the tentpole stuff. So I was doing reality TV, and it's terrible. And I'm going to go to web. I'm going to do smarter. That's what's going to live on the web. You know, 6-7 years ago or more. Okay, this is where I can do niche stuff. It's going to be smart. And now what makes money are kids and their webcams, which is almost the lower form of reality.
Right.
So, you know, you hope to find the same thing. I'm like, how many more Marvel movies can we have? When do people get tired of it, right? And then, but where do you find the place to put that? You know, where is the smart content that people are digesting? When we started off, we were doing I thought, smart content and hitting a target we thought that wasn't being hit on YouTube. When we first started out, you know, 5 years ago, we were doing smart movie reviews. We didn't like big action films. The problem was our viewers were probably over 35, but they didn't know what it meant to share. Hey, share it on YouTube. I don't know what you mean. Go to Facebook. I don't know what that is. You know, I think it's changing, but there was definitely a problem in the last 5 years of getting the, you know, more sophisticated audience to understand that we need their help to have a groundswell.
Well, counterpoint in terms of target demographics that aren't terribly hip, Downton Abbey pretty well replenished the PBS coffers.
Right. But people go to PBS for a reason. People weren't going to YouTube to see our smarter content. They go to YouTube to see the video games.
Well, you know what I mean? The thing is, they probably are going to YouTube, and that's what sucks. I mean, I got really pissed off at that too, because YouTube started making their whole metrics. It used to be how many people would watch a video. That used to be the metric, and that was great. You used to be able to go to YouTube's homepage and see what the most popular video of the day is. You can't do that now. You can't find it anywhere. It's like it's impossible. And they use all these sort of weird metrics, like you have to share it. You have to have so many comments. You have to have this and this and this. And so that what I found is that, you know, if you're over the age of, you know, I don't know, 14 or something like that, you're not going, oh my God, thumbs up. This is the coolest thing ever on the planet. You guys are so awesome. You're so great and everything. It's just like, it's like, no, it's like, you know, I have like an older audience that's watching this stuff and they're just kicking back and watching it. But then you get like demoted for that. It's like, you know, they're like punishing you.
And YouTube, it seemed to be they were trying to correct it. So they, you know, they did the initiative a couple of years ago. I was head of Big Frame production then. So we got the initiative money. And then suddenly YouTube, it seemed like they were trying to change the subscribers. So it had to be Google Plus. They were dumping a lot of subscribers. So it almost seemed like they realized it might not have been the greatest model to up these kids, you know, I call it. And look, they're making good content. They're making content that resonates with their audience, but it's not necessarily content that's any better than pop music. Pop music exists in that moment of time. There's no back catalog. And it seemed like YouTube was trying to change it with the initiative, trying to change it by taking away a lot of subscribers from people, by changing it from not showing their videos online anymore, you know, in the front, and then YouTube started losing money because of it. YouTube built what they built, and they sort of suddenly kind of maybe wanted to dump it, it seemed like from the outside, but they can't. It is what it is. It's its own monster at this point.
Well, the other thing is and I'm not sure if the other panelists have realized or experienced this, is when you used to say, oh, I'm doing a project for the web, you know, that meant, oh, I'm sorry, you know, sorry. It's rough out there. Keep your head up, you know.
Right.
And at this point, I think it is a mindset as a creator, as a producer, like doing a project for the web is not a catch-all. You know, you want an audience, and you go to whatever platform that audience is watching on. So for us, we are doing some things that are going to be higher budget, and those are longer tail, you know, projects for us. And it also means that the sales cycle is longer, the development cycle is longer. And we did a Gatorade web series with Gatorade. And one thing when you're working with brands is they don't necessarily have the same strategy, you know, at the end of a production cycle, especially in animation, which takes months, that they did at the beginning of the production cycle. So there's a bunch of different ways to look at it, but because you're producing for the web does not mean you have to be low budget.
And you're in a unique position to talk to taking existing content and reintroducing it to a new generation of viewers, by creating digital media content that enhances the original film experience. Brandon and his father, Michael Schultz, are prepping the 20th anniversary, I think reissue, but certainly anniversary celebration. 30th, I'm old, of Crush Groove, which was the seminal hip hop film when it popped out. And these guys are really refreshing the whole look and feel of that project. Do you want to talk to that?
Yeah, there's a bunch of things still in development, but we're bringing it directly to the fans through crushgroove.hiphop and to crushgroovemovie.com. There'll be more official announcements to come, but it's something that we're definitely excited about. Again, it's a brand that people resonate because it was the first mainstream hip hop movie, and told the story of Russell Simmons and Rick Rubin backing into what became Def Jam Records. At the same time, it also told the story of the Fat Boys and featured, you know, LL Cool J as a 16-year-old rapper who was probably about 100 pounds soaking wet. And, you know, people just associate some of these iconic, you know, movies that have kind of fallen off the public consciousness or the mainstream consciousness. Now it seems to be an opportunity via the web and via digital content to reach directly to those fans. And so that's what we hope to do with merchandising and possibly animation and more.
Great walk down memory lane. It introduced Blair Underwood to the world.
Yes.
One thing that I'm excited about in this, you know, in the world that's changing so fast now is the way that you can film things like with the virtual reality and the new camera systems they have, where you get to really experience You know, like I said, I came from a stunt background, producing a lot of stunts. And now I think they're going to be able to, you know, have that experience, you know, for the viewers.
Absolutely.
You know, whether it's with a headset, the expensive ones or the inexpensive ones. And to me, you know, taking old product and getting new advertisers behind it, because in the past, you'd have to sell it to a major network that has to aggregate huge eyeballs in order for it to monetize out for them. And if you're just going straight to the advertisers now and straight to the viewers, then, you know, it's so much more direct and so much more efficient that I think, you know, they can see endless amount of content now without having to go through the middlemen that stop it.
And yeah, and I think that's interesting because I think a lot of you in the audience are working in the industry. And I think that sense of disintermediation is what we're feeling most acutely because digital media can be such a direct one-to-one relationship. Being that the conversation today is about Hollywood, what can we talk about manifesting Hollywood in a digital sense, in a virtual sense, around the world? Don't everybody talk.
He's whispering. He's whispering and he's right. I'm like, you're right. He's right.
Calm down, you two.
So are you saying for it to expand its presence globally, Hollywood? Is that
Well, Hollywood, I think, you know, early on we established that Hollywood, you know, 60 years ago when Max Sennett first, you know, built those amazing studios, Hollywood was very much a literal location with very literal studios. Now that digital media and, you know, hardware and software have come down so much in cost that Joe Blow in Jamaica can upload an amazing 5-minute, 10-minute, 15-minute documentary, it's expanded that definition. So people no longer have to come to Hollywood, you know, bushy-tailed and bright-eyed. They can manifest really interesting content right where they are. So what can we, as having survived the first 85 years of Hollywood, do to reach out to filmmakers, storytellers, content creators around the world to help them figure out how to make a business doing this? It's one thing to have a 4-track recorder and record a song or two in the bathtub, as Bruce Springsteen did, because he already had distribution. It's another to be an 11-year-old with a vision. They've got to have some help. They've got to figure out what the online opportunities are to get that story out.
I feel like, I mean, maybe not. I mean, so what the easy one is YouTube. Again, gamers around the world are making millions of dollars, right? So the thing is, what's another platform other than YouTube? Again, going back to that is looking for documentary content. You know, YouTube is not going to help you with documentary content, but if you go on and start playing live games, there's a good chance you're going to make 6 figures if you do it right. Especially internationally, you know, there's reasons that PewDiePie got so big because he was actually, you know, broadcasting from England. So he was one of the only ones, or maybe even Italy. There's a whole video actually about it, of why he built it up so quickly, because he had no competition.
Yeah, British accent too.
Yeah, the accent. So in terms of, you're an 11-year-old kid, I know my nephew who's 9 is playing Minecraft and he's making Minecraft videos. So he's not looking to make smart videos at this point. He's looking to go, oh, I know I can make money on YouTube and people will watch it. Or not even money, it's more like people will watch it and talk to me, you know, and have fun with my Minecraft buddies. So I think Hollywood needs to develop platforms that enable people to independently make their films, but can monetize on them. And that's sort of what doesn't exist, because YouTube still is the place to monetize.
Although Facebook's killing it right now. I mean, there were a couple of girls in a car doing some sort of dances or something, and they uploaded their video to YouTube, the same video to YouTube and Facebook. They got 16 million views on YouTube. They got 200 million views on Facebook within like 2 weeks or something like that.
The problem is, though,
you can't monetize on Facebook yet. But I mean,
not even that. I feel like it's the same thing with Vine. Vine, all it did was YouTubers who literally, I know YouTubers who went, I don't want to make a big YouTube video. They're making Vine videos. They're making $15,000 in 6 seconds. They're not making smarter content. They're making easier content. And I'm afraid Facebook's going to fall into that same thing of, oh, here's an easy way to upload me yelling at my little brother. and that will get 200,000,
Right,
200
but I
million
think that
views.
speaks to the access to people globally having access to the notoriety that would come from coming to Hollywood and making a film. It's available, it's accessible. There's a level playing field now in terms of how is that going to continue to be. So, I mean, I think technology is making it available. You know, my 9-year-old niece did a video the other day on her iPad, and she put it up on YouTube. So I don't even think we have to wait for Hollywood to give anyone permission anymore, which is what I love about the web, is that we get to give ourselves permission to be seen and be expressed. And the technique is available and it's easily accessible. It's just to what extent are you now going to do that? Like at what level? Like you guys are playing a huge game. I'm sitting here feeling like I'm in kindergarten next to them, you know? And I'm so inspired. Like I feel like there's just a whole world of possibilities. So there's different levels, you know, it's an educational experience, but the most important thing is that your self-expression, there's now a platform available for that without permission.
But you know, I think Hollywood, you probably want to speak, right?
No, go ahead.
Well, I think where Hollywood comes in, I mean, I don't know if I'm sort of taking your question and sort of, warping it or something, but I think the fact that we're in Hollywood, I think is fantastic. And I think we should take advantage of, because there are so many like talented people in Hollywood that are not getting, you know, that haven't been able to break into the traditional system. And, you know, I just read an article last week on how, you know, now the tech world and, you know, content are starting to really come together now. And so the venture capitalists are really looking at that. So I think we have a really awesome opportunity. If you look at like the stuff on YouTube, it's crap. I mean, it's like, you know, it's just horrible. And yet it's getting all these views. So I think the next wave is going to be actually, I'm not saying it shouldn't be, it doesn't have to be quality as in like, you know, looking like, you know, super high quality television, Entertainment Tonight with a thumping soundtrack all the way through it. But if you can just hook up with some good writers, you know, some good filmmakers, they could still give it that sort of raw feel a little bit. But now I'm hoping that the next wave is going to actually be quality stuff, you know. So, and that's one of the things that I think it would be great if, you know, people in Hollywood could really start taking advantage of that and, you know, finding the talent that's out there.
I hear a new app being born.
The quality, yeah.
Yeah, the quality app, right? Like, so my niece would call you.
Exactly. There you go.
Well, it's interesting, and this is a little bit off topic, but you know, I'm a recent cord cutter. For years, I just justified my cable bill by like, it's the industry, I got to do it, you know, and it's ridiculous. You know, I'm $120 in a month, and I'm just like, this is not happening anymore. So enter the Apple TV, and yeah, I'm Apple, my wife's Android, so we get along. And now we when we watch news, we go on to the Young Turks network. Instead of watching the mindless news that I like has me screaming, like I'm actually getting a little bit of news from watching someone with a worldview, you know, that I can relate to, and I feel it's not complete lies, you know. So in that way, I think, you know, we have the power to kind of reach our audience, whatever platform we're at. You know, it does take our audience. You have to develop a passionate audience wherever you are. So that means being more authentic, being, you know, cutting through the noise. You know, it doesn't need to be broadcasting anymore. A lot of times when we are out and we're pitching in, you know, the mid 2000s, it was like, okay, how can we reach a broader audience? And now the question, we never get that anymore. It's now like, do you know your audience?
Yeah.
You know, can you reach your audience? And will your content cut through? And so that's 100% of the focus.
But, you know, that's the thing. So when we, like I said, with Streaming Garage Stupid for Movies, we were on YouTube, but we also built a Roku channel. This is, you know, 5 years ago. And we were one of the #1 independent Roku channels. I think we were #1 of all their channels. We had, you know, 200, 300, 400,000 subscribers, but it meant 0 in terms of monetary. But if we had that on YouTube, we would have been set.
Good comments. We would like to open up the discussion to some of your questions, since we're wrapping up in about 15 minutes. Anybody want to start? I think I can see you. Yes, ma'am.
For your new political show, what kind of social media platform are you going to use? Are you inventing a new one, or?
Yeah, we have an app called Underground Network, and it's at underground.net. It's going to be on about 5 weeks, I guess. And South by Southwest picked us as one of these potential top startups for 2015 social impact. So the app itself, once people download the app, they'll get a push notification of a law that's coming out, short 1.5-minute video or 1-minute video explaining it. And that's where the entertainment, the YouTube experience comes in. And then they can record their own opinions and all that. And then they can actually watch the show. And it's going to be tied to an actual online show and broadcast show eventually. So, but all of that will be integrated with Facebook, Twitter, and all that kind of stuff. So you really have to, it's good to have your own platform when it comes to mobile phones, just because it's your own platform and you control it. But you have to integrate that with everything else that's out there as well.
And will their comments be broadcast?
Well, yeah. So what'll happen is when people record themselves, they actually can appear on the show. So it's kind of a cool thing. And then we're actually have people down in DC going up to the politicians and telling them, look, 5 million people want you to vote this way. And then that's all filmed for the television show. So the politicians are going to be like, suddenly the camera's on them. And are you guys working for us? Oh, and by the way, here are a bunch of videos of people that want to express themselves as well. So,
Like a signature.
yeah, so we're going to really sort of integrate the audience into the show and, really use the technology seamlessly.
Yes.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
I'd like to get your opinion on the release of the interview directly online. And how is that going to affect future releases? And could it be a viable way to release future film?
Well, YouTubers are doing it. I know, Gary, you're working on that. Camp Dakota did it. They released it online through iTunes. It went to #1. So a lot of online personalities are skipping Hollywood completely, and they're releasing it for a price on iTunes, and they're hitting #1 and making a good chunk of money the first few weeks, right?
Yeah, I made a choice not to release my film theatrically. It's the first time I've not released. I've had 4 studio films released theatrically, and I consciously decided I wanted to go the digital route with this film, and it's been phenomenal.
Nice.
And we've only been out for a week. It's been really great. And
Fantastic.
what's interesting is we didn't have to do as much promotion as I'd normally have to do for a film that's being released theatrically, because social media, the people have been watching the film and they're now generating the.
Oh, it goes viral.
Yeah, it's going viral. Yeah,
That's half
yeah.
your
So
your budget.
It's really great.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Brandon, did you have a comment?
No, I was just gonna ask Troy, did you go through Vimeo, or who's your outlet for streaming? And
We're
Download.
iTunes,
iTunes.
and Amazon.
Okay, got it.
And let's see, iTunes and Amazon right now. That's been great. And it's available at Walmart and Target.
Oh.
But really, we're most impressed with the digital sales.
Yeah,
Right.
years ago, I did a documentary about the people who waited in line for Star Wars called Star Wait. We waited with them for 6 weeks,
It
and we
was
documented
blast.
the whole thing. And it came out. Target did it on DVD, and something I would never do again, because you have distributors who suddenly were like, "No, you didn't make that much money." It was the gross versus the net. We had a gross deal. I had to sue them. Literally the lawsuit happened. We finally fixed it. Came out in 2000. We made it 2002. Came out 2005, and 3 months ago we finally got a check.
Wow.
So I love the distribution model now. You don't have to get a distributor. You don't have to put it. And we probably would have sold a lot more, but it was 2002 when it came out. So we were every night actually filming, editing, and then putting it up online as one of the first sort of live reality documentaries online. But I would never go that route again. I would absolutely go digital distribution.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Troy, one time I was at Holly Berry's quoted saying that she actually doesn't get as big questions from Austin Ball. She always gets questions from Babs because they played so much on BT. Do you get any type of hit, or do you know how to monetize that? I mean, they actually play it on a loop sometimes, like 4 or 5 times a month. Do you say, okay, well, let's go back to the network now because they're playing one of my properties, or I can build with that audience because they're watching it so much? I mean, they gotta
Yeah, I don't own the intellectual property at all. I actually do go and watch YouTube and sit there watching the numbers. Whoa, I got to do that again differently. So yeah, Hallie did a great job. And I think the reason why she gets so much attention for that performance is she was actually willing to go outside of herself and be this wacky, unbelievably over the top character. And yeah, it's definitely, it's got a nice little following on the web.
Always try to own your intellectual property. Is that the?
Yeah.
That's
Here's
the
the
takeaway.
stay away from studios.
Yeah, when you're selling to people,
Yeah.
take more of a ownership deal than a money upfront deal. That's sort of my.
Yeah,
Correct.
my next film, I won't go through a studio at all. I'm 100% prepared to go digital and do it myself.
Phenomenal.
Absolutely.
So if anyone in our erstwhile audience would like to get in touch with you, how about a Twitter handle or email address?
Everything is Troy Byer. Twitter at Troy Byer, Facebook Troy Byer, Troy at troybyer.com is the email address. Kept it simple.
At Mike Rotman, Rotman, on Twitter. Yeah, that's probably the best way. If you want to see pictures of my cats and dogs, feel free to check it out on Instagram. That's just all my pets. I rescue animals, so that's that. But Twitter, probably the best way. Streamin' Garage without the G, so Streamin' Garage. You can see a lot of different stuff we've done over the past. And yeah, we're, in the end, we also do take pitches because, we get a lot of different people asking us for content. There's a lot of content now. The first 3, 4 years, 5 years, there was no money. Now suddenly there's a little bit of money. It's not TV money. It's not movie money, but there's definitely web money for productions that people need content for their MCNs or channels or branded deals or whatever they need.
I can be reached at, you can email me at chaz@underground.net. And yeah, I mean, our Underground Network itself is, we're trying to sort of position it as a sort of like early days MTV, sort of raw sort of programming. And really, so we are looking for people that have interesting content that's out there that we can sort of throw into the mix. So contact me if you have anything that you want to get out there. Yeah, it's chaz@underground.net. And if you go to underground.net, you'll see a little video, like a 2-minute video about the thing that we're doing. So Twitter, underground_net. I'm not really using that yet. I love Twitter. No, Twitter's fantastic. I just haven't, started promoting it yet. Yeah, I will, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
When he checks it.
We are at GRB TV for Twitter and GRB Entertainment for Facebook.
And I am Brandon at streetlegendsinc.com. That's Inc. with a K. And our Twitter is at Blockheads, BLOKHEDZ.
Email is, the easiest one is info@convergence.com, CONVERGENZ as in zebra.com. And Twitter is at CoconutH2O. And that's an O, not a 0. And we're developing a lot of Caribbean content at the moment for a channel targeted at the diaspora, as well as Caribbean expats that are exiled here. One last question. We're looking for a phone, and a gentleman named Mark apparently has it.
Do you want me to call the number? We'll do that later. Say your number for everybody.
Is that it then? We have one last question. Here we go.
Just out of curiosity, I learned recently that in some Asian countries, I think particularly in China, they have a new app where theatrical, audience goes into the movie and they make comments through the app, and they actually appear on the screen as the movie is being watched. Do you see some of this happening here?
There is something here called Pulse, and it's agnostic to format, but you can essentially integrate Pulse into your content and then get folks to give you feedback.
So, but this is in the movie theater.
Right, and you can do it in the theater. Yeah, we've seen it deployed on the concert circuit. U2 first initiated it maybe about 18 months ago, where you could essentially send like a $2 donation to the charity of the night and then see your name on the screen, or make a request, that sort of thing. So we have seen technology apps that do that. Thank you very much. You've been a great audience.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
So I have to write your email on the next one of those emails.